For Jesus, the good news if it isn't good news for everyone, it isn't good news. Cut to Jesus and the good news in Mark, and to blind Bartimaeus, the crowd, busy following their teacher out of town like retreat goers, having paid their weekend and want their full money's worth. They can't bear to let this roadside fixture, Bartimaeus, eclipse their opportunity to get close to him. And they brush Bartimaeus aside, sternly ordering him to be quiet. While on the surface, this passage can read like just another healing story where a blind man gets his sight restored, the deeper point for us is that Bartimaeus isn't the only blind man on the scene. The disciples and the crowds suffer from blindness too. The difference is they don't know that they are blind. They can't see the irony of their actions. They lack congruence. Even while following Jesus, who taught and embodied God's preference for the poor, and healed the blind and the lame, and touched the beggar at the gate, they couldn't see themselves brushing aside these very people in their pursuit of learning from Jesus. And the disciples and crowds were not the last followers of Jesus to suffer from blind spots. When I first heard Eugene Peterson's Lord's Prayer, "You're in charge, you can do anything you want," I dismissed it as hokey until I got to know where he was coming from and why he wrote it the way he did. He wanted to make it as accessible as possible to the people he lived among and ministered to. And now, when I reread it with more awareness of who Peterson was, I do so with a smile on my face. And I laugh at myself now as I realize the homespun pastor, that's the whole point, Elizabeth. Bring it on home. Make it real and accessible. It took me a long time to realize that I could learn from Peterson's integrity without having to adopt his word choices. So I ask myself with trepidation, what else have I missed in my long-lived dismissive reflex towards things unfamiliar to me, or too familiar to me, or towards things that make me uncomfortable? Jesus asks Bartimaeus what he wants him to do for him. "Jesus, my teacher, make me see," he says. He can name his own blindness, and I think that's all Jesus wanted to hear. Jesus would heal the whole crowd if only they could name their own blindness and ask to be able to see their blind spots. Jesus lived what Jesus taught. His means matched his ends. He could stand still and look when his fans were blindly rushing him forward. He was the original congruent contemplative. Jesus went to his death knowing that these enormous crowds he was attracting, and even his own disciples, would abandon him and would not recognize their blindness until the light of Jesus' resurrection would reveal it to them. They had to lose Jesus in order to find him. And so often that's the way it is for us. Our dead ends, our losses, our costliest missteps are sometimes the only path by which we can come to recognize our blind spots. Another way is by cultivating self-awareness on a daily basis. Thanks to the legacy of teachers like Keating and Peterson, we have many accessible tools to help lead us into the way of Jesus, the original congruent contemplative. Practices of prayer that make us into people who are willing to die 1,000 little deaths a day to our pride and our overconfidence that our opinions and our ways of doing things are the only valuable ones. Practices of self-awareness that can lead us to ask and genuinely want to know, who are we hushing on the roadsides of our lives? Who and what is being brushed aside or ignored in our rush to get ahead, or to be right in every debate, or to save the world? What are we missing? I wonder what I am missing, and I shudder to think of all the ways I don't even know that I am blind. I can only cry out in the words of Bartimaeus, "Jesus, my teacher, make me see. Jesus, my teacher, make me see.